Hey, Lora.
Hi, Iris.
I'm just going to introduce you to our Israeli viewers in Hebrew, with your permission.
Sure.
שלום, שמי איריס בר-לב, ממרכז יסודות בירושלים, ואני יושבת פה עם לורה גייטס, ואני אציג אותה בפניכם, ואנחנו נערוך רעיון קצר. So, Lora Gates is a certified clinical somatic educator for the last 11 years. And she's also on the training team of Essential Somatic Education Training. Yeah. So, will you please represent yourself, your background, how you got to somatic education?
Sure. I began, my first career was a professional dancer. I was based in New York. I danced with a modern dance company for about a decade. And then later I became a dance teacher in various techniques, and often with a focus on sort of the dance as a healing modality as well. And I started studying anatomy and kinesiology also. It was an interest of mine. And I had some training in deep tissue massage as well. And I bumped into this work. I read the book, sort of the primer, Somatics, by Thomas Hanna, and I got quite curious about this technique. I thought, if this is possible, I want to know how to do it. And I found a practitioner. I was living upstate New York at the time. I found a practitioner a few counties over from me, and I did a session, and when I felt, initially it was the hands-on techniques that impressed me greatly. It was so incredibly helpful and great solutions to some issues I was having. He gave me back, I had sort of a frozen hip from teaching dance, and it gave me back my full range of motion in about 5 or 10 minutes time. There was no pain involved, there was no stretch involved. It was this movement technique with feedback from his hands. And in that moment I said, I've never felt anything quite as amazing as this technique. I will someday know how to do this work. And that's where it began. So a few years later I found my way to a training and began this. But yeah.
You're considered to be an expert in helping scoliosis clients. With the aid of essential somatic techniques and treatments. Can you please share with me your personal background with the emphasis on scoliosis?
Sure. I did my whole dance career with sort of a medium to severe scoliosis and quite a problematic back. I could expect my back to go into crisis several times a year. And that continued even into my teaching career when I was less intensively an athlete, and also a lot of chronic pain. It felt like my spine was compressed all the time. And I tried many modalities, looking for relief. Some things would give me some temporary relief, but when I bumped into this work and I began to feel the effects on my system and my scoliosis, I realized that for the first time, I had some tools that could literally change my scoliosis, and I did get some measurable change in it, and that was amazing. But the most powerful thing for me, the big deal, was the functional change. I no longer felt like my spine was compressed. I had much less chronic pain, and if it began to come back, I could chase it away with my self-care tools, which were part of this work. I had more mobility, and I considerably more oxygen. It changed a lot of postural issues, scoliosis included, for the better. So it's just, for most people, scoliosis, gets worse with age, and I'm almost 67 now, and mine is getting better, and I know it will continue to.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'd say functionally it improved like 80%.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
And
Yeah, so from your personal experience, do you believe that people who have been diagnosed with scoliosis can improve their condition?
I do. I tried a lot of other methods, and this is the first place I would send people with scoliosis at any age, really at any age. This is a non-invasive, very effective technique, and it's twofold. Both the hands-on technique, which helps the client's brain locate and get to stubborn, kind of unconscious contractive patterns and begin to change those. And then the solo movement practice that you send them home with tools to work with themselves. And that, if that's a regular practice, they'll get a lot of results from the movement practice as well and turn the changes into new neural habits. So it's literally changing the signal from the brain to the nervous system and the state of the muscles, literally teaching the muscles a new resting length, a new normal. So lots of things can change. If the resting length of the muscle changes, that means that the bones that have been held somewhere can now move back. Joints can be decompressed. You have more mobility. If the ribs are freed, you have more oxygen instantly. If the front of the body is more open. And I'm not talking about sort of manipulating a posture to a new place. I'm talking about changing the signal from the brain. It has been saying short to muscles. You give it a new signal, and suddenly the body can literally go a new place and enjoy decompression and spaciousness and more mobility. So the change can be quite profound.
Actually, contraction of the muscles actually pull the spine and the bones and the skeleton out of place.
Exactly.
And it's released.
Yeah, you know, in the medical model, someday this will be part of mainstream medicine. I hope in my lifetime, especially for the sake of people with scoliosis, because this idea that is sort of central to our work, that the muscles are incredibly changeable. They're the most changeable thing we have. Bones just do what muscles tell them to do. The fascia, follows suit with what the muscles are doing. None of those have a sensory motor loop to the brain, which the muscles do, which means if you speak to the brain and know how to do it through movement and these specific techniques, you can change that.
Right. Second thing I want to ask you is, when you give your workshops all over the world today, with a strong emphasis on scoliosis, what are the different self-treatment tools that those who attend the workshop are receiving? What are they going with home?
Yeah. I send them home. It's a workshop that introduces somatic basics, but it also adds some movements that I've developed that are sort of scoliosis specific. When there's lateral curves in the spine, you also have twist and torque. So we address, and the ribs are very much part of what holds the spine captive. So you can free up the ribs, it frees up the spine and vice versa. And twist and torque. We address the body in 3D with these movement techniques, and so I send them home with a movement practice to do that maintains what they've learned, and they'll continue to get improvements on the road. And also, when I give them audio-visual support and an illustrated manual as well.
These are movements and exercises that you developed through the years.
And some of them are simply somatic basics, but I made them kind of tweak them towards what would be especially helpful to scoliosis. And with this work, when I teach these workshops, they get a discounted hands-on session with me as part of that. And I encourage them to get hands-on session, because if you really want to get some change in scoliosis, you want some hands-on sessions. Because those patterns in the body, any strong postural habits that are more extreme, like scoliosis, could also be, kyphosis and lordosis. Those are kind of more hidden, I'd say a bit more stubborn, so the hands-on work helps the brain really locate it and change it.
And for you, what is the most exciting aspect of your work you're doing?
There's a couple of things that I think really set this work apart. One is that these techniques are, although they're very powerful, probably the most powerful for changing the system I've ever run into, they're also extremely gentle. And you start with the truth of wherever that body is. So I can work with high-powered athletes, professional dancers, which I do, all the way to someone 93 years old or older, or someone with osteoporosis that's more delicate, or someone recovering from injury, or rehabbing from an injury or a surgery. And we start with the truth of where those muscles are and begin to change it gradually. And with scoliosis also, we don't force the body, we don't stretch the body, which can sometimes make things worse. We start, with subtly working and it's a gradual process relative to what that body needs. So I can adjust the techniques to work with the person on my table or in my class really quite specifically, which is a lovely thing about it. So it's powerful but gentle. And the other thing I love about it is I'm handing them tools to use, self-care tools to take care of their bodies and improve their quality of life and take away pain and give them back activities that they thought they couldn't do, restoring their quality of life. I'm sending them home with that, and I know if they get it, if they really start using the tools, they won't stop. They'll use it for the rest of their life, as I do, to keep myself mobile and pain-free.
Get to your age and move in such high quality, which is amazing. Yeah. Can you please share with me one of your client stories, one that had profound impact on you?
I have so many testimonials by clients and really fun stories, life-changing events that happen. This work, as you're beginning to change the contractive patterns, that hold a body. Those are really the imprints of our history, right? Our emotional history, and so it's both physical and emotional trauma, not to mention repetitive motion and posture that begin to shorten these, create these contractive patterns that kind of holds the body captive. And so as you're teaching the brain how to let them go, it changes. It certainly has a profound effect physiologically, and oxygen intake, lymphatic health, for instance, because lymphatic drainage runs right through here. So open up the front of the chest, boom, you've got improved lymphatic drainage, for instance. Can affect digestion, cardiovascular, everything really. But very often, whatever old emotional habit you have, it can really accelerate moving forward out of old emotional habits. So it's quite wonderful in that way too.
Which clients? Which cases?
Let me think.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about one client and student and a woman in Edmonton, Canada, Elise Watkins, who's now in our training. She loves this work so much. She's with us. Just finished her second module. And Elise had this to say. I talk about Elise because prior to this work, she was a certified Schroth therapist, which is sort of, it's a technique for working with scoliosis that's sort of a newer and more popular method in the medical model. And she was also on her way to having a PhD in physiotherapy specific to scoliosis. And when she ran into this work and felt the changes on her own scoliosis, she took a turn away from medicine and into this work because she had never felt so much change. And her way of describing it is, she said, I stood up after doing these gentle movements. She said, I felt suddenly, for the first time in my life, an absence of scoliosis. It didn't mean that her scoliosis was gone, but she felt so much change in the contractive patterns. It literally felt like she wasn't a person with scoliosis anymore. It's like she realized her identity could change, and she felt pain relief and more breath and all the things that come with changing the state of the muscles. So I love it that Elise can speak to this work from a medical background, and she has it to compare because she did all those what are the current methods, you know, bracing and trough and stretching and all the things that they do currently as sort of, you know, the usual model for this work.
Wow. One last question.
Yeah.
What inspires you to wake up in the morning and travel all around the world to teach?
Yeah, it's a bit too much traveling, I'd say. Get a bit too friendly with your suitcase, but I'll do this as long as I can. I love being on the training team and helping to grow and teach and mentor practitioners, because I know we're spreading this work all around. And someday this will be an alternative to some surgeries that really don't need to happen, because you could change the state of the muscles. Maybe a surgery wouldn't need to happen. And things that are about, you know, compressed spine, like I described to you earlier, you know, if that spine could be more decompressed by repatterning muscles, which is exactly what this work is about. Think of all the things you might affect positively, like herniated discs, like scoliosis, like, you know, a variety of issues around the spine. But that can really happen to literally every muscle of the body. So, to get a chance to spread this work in my lifetime and get more and more people understanding it, having the tools to take care of themselves, taking pain away, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I get to not only help people when I work one-on-one, which I love, but I also get to teach people how to help other people, and it's wonderful.
Wow, that is wonderful. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Iris.
ותודה לכם שצפיתם.